All right, so hello all. Welcome to the Monday, July 12th, regular meeting of the Town of Easton Planning and Zoning Board. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you'll need to follow the link on the town's website under the calendar for planning board meeting tonight. While board members and commissioners and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendee, meaning they are muted with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raised hand function or the Q&A function on Zoom. If you are joining by phone only, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make a request of the chair and email materials to the board staff for sharing on screen. When starting testimony, please state your name and address for the record. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and second, so that it'll be clear to the audience and minute takers who made the motions. All votes will be by roll call. To ensure we have a quorum, we will now take a roll call, and I would ask the board members state their name and present. Gregory Strange, here.
Peter Bashane, here.
Robert Stetson, here.
Here.
Chris Anderson, here.
Bruce Kevin, here.
Thank you very much. And Deborah, if you wouldn't mind, could you just change, it says Deborah, I need to have your last name up there too. So request we got from, or if you don't know, I know Stephanie, I think. You don't know how to.
Here, let me see.
So let's see.
I think I can do it, yeah.
We have, has this happened before? A continued public hearing for 58 Mill Street?
No.
It seems to, a little deja vu. They have requested a continuance to July 26, 2021. 58 Mill.
The board did vote on this already, I'm sorry.
We did?
You did,
Oh, at a previous meeting?
yes.
This is the one that had the, okay. Did we do it for Sawmill?
No.
Okay. Well, I kind of wasted that joke. Anyways, so if someone would like to make a motion to continue 560 Foundry Street, Sawmill Village.
Stetson, motion to continue 560 Foundry Street to July 26th.
Second, Anderson.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Strange eye.
Stark guy.
Stetson, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Great. All right. So first up tonight, we have a continued public meeting, Lullaby Lane modification of a definitive plan. Stephanie, I'll let you take it.
Okay, so the applicant submitted the revised plan. I'm sorry, there's an ambulance going by. Showing the modified sidewalk. So the board will remember, and I apologize. My home internet is not working, so I am in a satellite location and I'm having a hard time opening the binder because it's so large.
Do you want me to share my screen? I have the plan open.
Yes, if you have the plan up, if you could show that.
All right. Okay, yeah.
And then I can close my attempt to open it.
Did that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we see your entire desktop.
Yeah, that's a little messy. That's okay. But nothing inappropriate.
I can't see the, or is that me? Okay. I see my desktop, jeez.
So
Here you.
here is the plan. Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is, you can see this dark bush shade area representing the,
Sorry, I am seeing. Oh my goodness, I don't know where this just came from. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
okay, no, just so, just where I'm moving my cursor, along the bottom, that's the dark bush shade represents the sidewalk,
Yes,
as we had discussed, up to, house
yes.
number 23.
Yeah.
I guess that was the only major thing, right?
Really, and then one other question was the streetlights. There are 2 streetlights installed as required by the original plan. One is at, I think that's Concerto Drive that intersects with Lullaby. And it's on the north side. See the-
Oh, yeah, right here.
And then there's a second one between lots 25 and 24, and that has been installed, 24 and 23. And that
Oh, right
light,
up here. Okay.
yes, yep,
Oh, and
Stephanie, I have
the island is landscaped too.
right, yep.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dan.
I believe I was on the original presenter panel when this originally got approved 20 years ago. Am I still eligible to vote on this?
Yes, I don't think, right? I don't think,
I mean,
Yeah.
I currently have
When you
no
say
conflict of
presenter,
interest.
you mean you were on the applicant side?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the 1 year,
has expired.
actually, no, you are not, because a project you worked on, it's a forever clause. If the company, were coming with another project and it had been a year since you left the company, then
Okay.
you'd be able to vote on a new project, but where it's a project you worked on in the past, you would not be able to vote on it. So thank you for
Okay.
asking.
So I'll just recuse myself.
Yeah, the 20 years, I believe, guess.
I can't even 100% remember if Lullaby filing was even in the original presentation, but
no,
I did
better
work
to
on
play
it.
it safe.
Yeah, I did work on this second phase, so, okay.
So we see the landscaping, we see the sidewalk, the lights have been called out. Were there any other, I can't recall any other items, right?
No, the only other item was related to the roadway itself. And you made that clear, that's a separate topic to whether the board wants to approve this modification. After the board has discussion and votes, I can give you an update on the road.
Oh, you mean on the reconstruction or sure. So board members, do you have any questions or comments?
Do we have to decide that this is a minor modification, or have we already done that? Or was there some?
I don't think we took a vote on it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm fine with this being a minor modification.
Okay, motion to approve the minor modification to the subdivision plan as currently presented.
Second, Stetson.
Okay, any further discussion? For some reason, I've lost I can't see if there are any hand raised, Stephanie, so I'll let you
Let me,
know where that went.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, so hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Strange, aye.
Duchesne, aye.
That's an aye.
Tatum, aye.
Anderson, I.
Great, and Deb's, she's recused, so it's not even abstaining.
So I do just want to mention that Frank Gallagher, representing Mr. Itani, is on the meeting, but I don't think he needed to add anything.
Well, since it just got approved, I think he would be best to stay silent. Just kidding, Frank, do you have anything you need to, if you need to add anything, you just raise your hand. Otherwise, we will, Stephanie, if you want to go ahead and talk to us about the road.
So I did talk with Mr. Itani, and I had Craig Swan, the assistant town engineer, go out and inspect the road. He asked that core samples be done. He definitely recognizes that the binder course is in rough shape, and particularly in certain areas. And he asked that the core samples be done because if there's enough, if it's been laid down to the 3 inches, that's required, and 2 of the 3 inches is in pretty good shape, he feels that they can probably take off an inch and just lay down an inch of new binder and then finish the road. So I talked with Mr. Kenny, he agreed to do that, and once he has that information, we'll look at it, and Greg will provide some additional advice and guidance.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Next up, why don't we jump down to the ZBA request for comment? First one's the Blackledge Comprehensive Permit, 87 and 91 Union Street. And how do you want to handle this? You just want to open this to the board, Stephanie, or did you have anything you wanted to
Yes,
say?
and again, I wish I could, I'm going to try again to open the binder. I'm not positive. Huh, now it says it can't find it, but let me try again. Again, we don't have engineered plans, but I feel at this time there are renderings, and there's a plan that shows generally the massing and also elevations. So certainly the board can review those and provide any comments they have on what they do have at hand, recognizing that once the engineer and final plans come in, you'll have an option to review those again.
You want me to share my screen or I'm gonna
If
help?
you can, that would really help.
Does that work for everybody?
Yes,
So we have a few pages. We have this page, rendering.
So, board members, did you guys, do you have any questions or comments? Did you review these plans, or are we,
Well, these are the same that we've had on file for a month.
right, right.
Yep.
I think the thought is, I'm understanding Stephanie correctly, you know, the final engineering isn't done, but we have these if we want to,
Right.
present any comments to, we don't have to, it's like everything, we don't have to provide any comments, or we can provide, some comments.
And I think the only changes that might occur, they firm the wetland line, and that may cause a little shift in buildings. As I understand it, building 2 may be pushed back a little bit further than it is. They were also doing test pits for the septic system, and depending on the results of that, that building might actually even be broken into 2 separate buildings. But again, they would probably be pushed further from Union Street. But that, you know, at this point, that's conceptual.
What were the comments in permit related to the relocation of the historic dwelling?
They have agreed to preserve that building, and I think they're talking about moving it further to the west, the southwest there, so that you improve the line of sight. That's what I think
The
they're,
southwest is in near that green, near like the grass section.
yeah.
So like closer to Union Street, just opposite that dark green island.
It's been moved much closer to the Brockton town line. If you look
It has
right,
it closer, further away.
right where that little, box that says 50-foot setback up on Union Street to the left of the house, that's the location of the existing house now. So if you dig into the plans, they've dropped the grade down and they've cleared back to help out with the sightline issue coming around that corner.
Yeah.
which those were my two concerns, how they were gonna address that, and they have, and then preserving the house was an idea that I pitched back a year and a half ago when this came up, since the house dated back to 1776, and thought it would be nice to keep a little bit of history in this part of town. Mr. Lincoln agreed. So that's nice.
How many units is this?
110?
110.
110.
And,
And these are apartments, not condos?
yeah,
And the total acreage is what? I guess my question really is, what's the density on that lot?
Deb, I don't have that off the top of my head.
I can tell you this, as soon as it steps unpixelates here in a minute, I'll try to tell you. Let's see. It doesn't give us a lot size.
Stephanie, what is they need to meet from a point of view of density?
I'm sorry?
It's an agreement, what they have to meet.
On the density, there's no, this is a comprehensive permit with 20% of the units affordable. Actually, I'm sorry, it's 25% affordable. And because it's a comprehensive permit, they're just seeking a waiver of the density requirement. So there wasn't anything in the mitigation agreement with the select board limiting the density, other than that the project would be for 110 units.
What about the height of the proposed apartment buildings?
It's 2 stories, and he hasn't shown us the height dimension.
The buildings are 3 stories, actually.
No,
And I believe, wasn't there a waiver request on the height?
yes, that is a waiver request.
So, I'm sorry, so when you said that the select board agreed to 110 units, is this like a negotiated agreement at this point?
Well, the mitigation agreement is, yeah, it's based on the 110 units.
So, if we thought the density should be less or more, is that not in our power to alter?
You could.
Well, this is a 40B. We don't really have any power on this one. I think it's important,
Yeah.
important to remember that.
You mean the town, Deb?
For those that might not know, in return for the 25% affordability component, most of the, zoning bylaws are, the applicant doesn't have to go through that. They deal with ZBA for approvals and Concom when required. And so leading up to that, this was, right, this would sort of fall under I think it's a friendly 40B anytime there's conversations between the developer and the administration and the Board of Selectmen, and not being privy to those discussions other than an initial one 2 years ago. I can't speak to what went on there, but there's always a back and forth and a give and take, and an agreement is or a project that seems to be with something that they're happy with. They present to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen voted on this 8 months ago, so to approve it, and then it moves on to the ZBA for the final approval. So that's why we're seeing this now, for any comments. So it's
what is the role of our board in giving comments on 40B then?
Good question.
frankly, it's pretty limited. Always, it's a 40B. It's a 40B overrides planning boards and other boards.
Well, so again, Greg, just to kind of provide a little more information in detail, when you have a comprehensive permit going before the Zoning Board of Appeals, what they're seeking are waivers from the zoning regulations, the local bylaws. So you can comment on the density, you can comment on the height. it will be up to the zoning board of appeals to decide how to weigh that, and then in their decision to grant the waivers.
Right, but my point was, given the fact that there's, like there always is, basically nobody shows up at the initial meetings with the planning board. I mean, with the select board, you know, right, so it comes to us to comment, so we can comment on anything, Deb. But I just look at these realistically, and given that there has been no organized groundswell of support or opposition to this project, it seems that whatever the selectmen have voted on, you know, to allow to go forward is what the administration and the board of selectmen are trying to have approved.
So the selectmen, so the selectmen have voted to handle this as a friendly 40B. Is that what?
Is that their role? Yes, as a local initiative project.
Right, and as I mean, we always have our input on you know, any of these, but you know, as a friendly 40B, you know, they could you know, this must be like the opportunity to solicit any input from the planning board officially, right? Otherwise, you know, the members of the board have their own avenues, I suppose.
Right.
So this is a formality in case we see something that is really, really bad to comment on it?
Well, no, it doesn't have to be really, really bad. This is our opportunity as one of the appointed boards in town to provide input during the approval process. So we could certainly, if, you know, Deb talked about density, so, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but just for an example, Deb was saying, well, I think, you know, there should be 20 units less. We shouldn't waive the density. Then we would talk about that as a board. If we agreed with that as a board, then we could send comments out. We wish the density was less, or we may look and, you know, if, let's say, if the sight lines hadn't been handled, if there's anything in this project that we'd like to see changed or concerns us, this is our opportunity to bring it up. But we don't have, I guess what I was trying to say before, we don't have a up or down vote on this. This overrides
So
our board.
changing the wording, don't cut my word, not really bad, but things that we think should be different. As I think.
Yeah, things that you would like to, if you'd like to see something different, then you should explain why and present it to this board, see if we agree. And if we agree, then we could present that in written form to the Board of Selectmen, or to the, I'm sorry, to the CBA.
Were we able to identify what the density ratio is?
No, I couldn't tell. This is such a limited plan, and I didn't see. There is an info block on here, but it's pixelated. I can't get it to.
I can try to go to property viewer quickly, Deb, because if this hasn't been Form A yet, or it's not going to be Form A, then it should already be a lot in property viewer.
Or do we roughly know what the acreage is?
Hold on.
Could we?
I mean, there must be a report on this if we go to our file. So, Stephanie, did you write a report?
Yeah, if I were back in the office or at home, I did. Hold on, but I don't know if I have access to it where I am right now. Which is a disadvantage.
Could we return a comment on both?
Not.
So I'm reading the project summary letter, but that doesn't give it.
Let me see if I can get.
Project, now open the project eligibility letter.
You know what? I do have a document that I think probably states what the acreage is. So
The existing front lot here, the one on the Brockton line, on Easton Maps Public Works Property Viewer, is, let's see, 116,000 square feet, 116,741.
Okay,
That's like the
so
4 acres.
Yeah,
So
I take our calculator.
But is that
43,560.
are the two main issues open space and density?
Well, let's answer Deb's question based on this information here, just in case it's accurate. Okay, so 116,741 divided by how many units?
110.
This tells me it's 7.1 acre site.
110.
Mhm. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, a 2 acre site seems a little off for the entire parcel. Like a 2.5 acre with that other.
It
Yeah,
says
it does
the
sound a little
7.1
strange. It must-
uh,
Yeah, nothing
eligibility
more than
letter,
that.
7.1 acres parcel located on Union Street.
116.
The proposal consists, here we go, conceptual site plan. Proposal consists of 2 3-story residential buildings on approximately 7.1 acres. The proposed site plan places the 2 apartment-style buildings at the center of the site. The buildings are placed with their long axis perpendicular to the street, therefore limiting the length of the facade visible from Union Street. Vehicular access is provided from Union Street. A vehicular drive provides access to a central parking area and continues a loop around one of the buildings, connecting several parking areas. The largest parking area is located at the rear of the site, away from public view. Surface parking is provided for 144 vehicles, including accessible parking spaces. The existing single-family home is proposed to be relocated along the front of the site to mitigate the height of the new apartment-style structures. The detention pond is designed to be at the rear and middle of the site. Both street corners will be left undisturbed to save the existing natural vegetation. The existing Cape-style home will be renovated and relocated on the site to create administrative offices. And I know it also says community. On one of these ones it says community building, and then they show parking for it. So that's from the letter submitted by the applicant for the plan. So
So it's about 16 units per acre.
Well, I think the rendering and the idea of the complex seems pleasing, and it is on Union Street. However, I do think that this is still, even though it's a very heavily used road, a very residential neighborhood, and the density does seem really high to me. And I also can't think of anything that is 3 stories. And it does abut mostly single family homes all around it. I think the only thing I can think of that isn't, other than the existing buildings, is I think there's a church up the street. What's the density on the units by Target?
Yeah, the church is,
Oh, the church is a different type of structure than.
well, I mean, I guess that
It's-
I don't understand what the relevance is of the density anyways. These are 2 buildings with parking around it, regardless of where it, I mean, even if this was on a 100-acre site, that would mean the other acreage wasn't used because it was wet. And, there are a lot of wetlands resources.
I think she's talking about like building on scale, like we've talked about in other zones.
Well,
even.
right, but that's different. That's not density. I mean, that's which I understand what she's saying, that this is, we all know what Union Street is. It's a neighborhood of single-family homes. And
Right,
now
so I mean, we're talking about 1 unit per 2,700 square feet, where our current single family bylaw is 43,560 square feet.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, what Deb has kind of,
but
made me rethink is that,
Right.
It's exceptionally dense, and I would hope that the mitigation is, is well worth well worth the density, you know, adding to this area and, you know, and the town.
Sure,
Yeah.
but I guess I'm looking for us, I think we need to remember what we're doing here. Those comments they may be very valid, I may even agree with them, but I think the place for those would have been, presenting those to the Board of Selectmen before they made their decision. They've decided to move this forward. So now this is basically a site plan review for us where we're being asked as the planning board to, comment on the site context, the site layout, the site design. Doesn't mean we can't talk about the density, but I guess I would feel rather awkward being the chair of a board that was appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Again, we're familiar with this process and with the public meeting process. If we wanted any of these points, if any citizens wanted to bring these up to the Board of Selectmen, that opportunity was there, and I guess it still could be. But I don't know if our time or efforts well served sending a letter saying that this density is much greater than the existing neighborhood. I mean, that's kind of a given. That's why it's a 40B.
I guess those are my comments. This is the first time I'm personally aware of this project. I would be very surprised if I pulled the neighboring subdivisions, the Doug King neighborhood that's adjacent to this, if they've all been made aware of this project and feel like they've had adequate input into it. So I unfortunately think that our town government sort of is set up that, yeah, people react once they know about it. And this is my first time hearing it. I think the density is far greater than most everything we've ever done. And I think in terms of height, it also is taller than anything I can think of in this area. Do I think it's potentially a very good use for this site? Do I think, yes, it's on a busy street? Yes, but that's a lot of units. I mean, I've been on many applicant sides proposing these types of projects in other towns, and 110 is a lot of units. And whether or not we have any role to do this or not, I guess the select board can decide. I guess that's what my opinion is at this point.
Well, yeah, they've already voted for this to go forward, correct, Stephanie?
Yeah, so what is
Did
this?
we lose Stephanie?
No, sorry.
Oh, she's muted.
Sorry about that. I lost connection for a minute. I was just asking if I could ask Deb a question.
Oh, sure.
Which is, what is your concern with the density? I would understand the height. The idea of setting the buildings back is to offset the potential intrusiveness of the buildings on the street side. It is an area that is surrounded by undeveloped area. I know that one of the abutters, the immediate abutter, has been having conversations with Mr. Lincoln to make sure that his privacy is protected. He is one of the closest abutters, and while he hasn't expressed opposition to the project, he just wants to make sure that it doesn't loom over him.
I think that it does seem the way that it's cited wouldn't necessarily be an offense or a problem to the street in terms of it really seriously negatively impacting the other things on the road. But I think in terms of that many units and that many residents going into basically what I think is, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe an almost exclusively single family neighborhood. Do I think it's a better use than another factory or high hazard project going in there? Yeah, I do. Do I think it means like, I mean, why not put in 220 units? Like, what's the limit? Like, what's the point of us even trying to regulate density? I'm just saying 110 units on a 7-acre site is a lot.
Well, I think your comments echo what many residents feel in town, and even what I've said publicly in my many years of serving the town. 40B can be a very a blunt tool, planning tool. Many people feel that that's the only way you can get affordable housing, and I think it's fair to say, and Stephanie, I'll let you respond to this, but I would imagine the administration and the select board are, in favor of this project because of the affordable housing component, both large A and small A, I guess. But there are many folks in town who, we've had a very substantial number of rental units added to the town in recent years in the form of large buildings like this or large projects like this. Avalon, the Turner's project on 138, whose name escapes me, and Shovelworks, of course, and then this. And I participated in some discussions, and I heard some people said, well, Avalon was in sort of an industrial commercial area with good access, at least by Easton standards, to a highway. They thought it made sense. Shovelworks was a fantastic project, if nothing else, for the historical preservation and how that revitalized downtown. And there have been some folks who felt, that out in Union Street, that this would, doesn't quite fit the character of, agreeing with what you're saying, Deb. And there can be merit to that. I guess, what becomes frustrating for me, and I'm not pointing this at you at all, Deb, I want to make that clear. But I just, by coincidence, several months ago, when this was presented to the Board of Selectmen for the first time, I just happened to be at that meeting. It was a virtual meeting, but I happened to be there because I had to present something to the board. And there was not one resident in the town of Easton that came out to participate in the meeting, to talk about any, to present any questions, to oppose it, to support it. And then, of course, once it was approved a few weeks later, a lot of folks were angry. In fact, a lot of people always mistake, they think our board has something to do with it. And I had a few people stop by my house and say they should be term limits on planning board because we're letting them do all these apartments. To which I gave a little education on how this works. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if people are for or against something, they just need to get involved sooner. And these things are made public, and people always say, "Oh, I didn't know about it. I didn't hear about it. No one told me." Well, you know what? You have to stay diligent, and you have to read weekly, the things that are submitted by the town. You have to read you have to go on the town's website. You have to scour what's upcoming, and stay in touch with the folks that are on appointed boards. I mean, this project's been discussed for quite some time. I mean, the first came up in January, I believe, of 2020. It was the first time I heard about it, anyways. And so I guess it's just hard. Now, the selectmen have had numerous meetings on this. I don't know if ZBA has yet or not, but there's been a lot of public presentations for this. So I guess the time to try to curb, try to change a project based on its density was earlier than now. And what I mean, not that we can't take a stand, but if to take an effective stand, it needed to be done earlier, and not by this board, because we wouldn't get it. It would need to be done by citizens. And I don't think people really understand that. I know a lot of folks will say that the reason that the folks in town that are pushing this project, they like that it gets us gets us into safe harbor, for percentage-wise, because population is growing, and when the census numbers came, and etc. So, anyways, I'm That's
Well,
all.
and Greg, I think that's another point to consider, especially Deb, if you're thinking about where you control development like this and the density and having it be a friendly 40B where the developer is willing to work with the town on mitigation, that the town has hit its 10%, but when those new census numbers come out, we think that number will once again push the town to just under the 10%. And you have some projects in the queue that need to come to fruition to keep the town there. And doing one-off affordable units, which helps increase the diversity of housing in Easton and does add more affordable stock to the town, it doesn't do a lot to keep you at that 10% number.
I have a question. So given that these are apartments, are 100% of the apartments, do they count towards our affordable?
Yes.
So rather than just having, like, it's almost like treading water if only 10% are affordable. I mean, because you're adding, for every 9 unaffordable, you're adding 1 affordable. So you're actually kind of almost moving backwards in a sense.
Right.
Maybe based on the total. So 100%, these whole 110 units will count towards that affordable.
I'll just say one thing personally for Greg Strange, since I did say I sat at the initial meeting for this. I was invited. Unfortunately, that was the one and only meeting I was ever at. And I expressed at that meeting that I really wasn't in favor of this project at the time because I felt it was, if not, we've talked about diversified housing, and I'm not anti-apartments, but large apartment buildings like these, they're always going to look like large apartment buildings, and I had hoped for seeing those historical building on the property, and the way that the topography, the way this lot drops off from the road, I thought it was a nice opportunity I would rather have seen, clusters of smaller buildings with maybe a little more creative architecture. Because, whether you're talking about Avalon properties or this or, large 50 to 100 unit buildings, they are what they are. I understand the economy of building and the efficiency that they need in these things. But I'm always looking, anybody that's listened to me babble on for the last 16 years, I'm constantly pushing to improve the aesthetic of this town. We were given many gifts many years ago by a philanthropic family, and that gave us a head start. And I'm a firm believer in trying to create a little character. I am not a believer that you can really get much character out of it.
And really, I mean, as long as we're subject to 40B, we can't blame the selectmen for trying to,
Oh, I'm not blaming anybody.
get a good deal. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, right? Yeah, it's like, they're doing their best, and we do our best to make our comments. I mean, that's.
I just have one comment. I think for a project of this magnitude, the impact it will have on the town, the regular ways by which you can throw back to the people and say you should have participated and be on the meetings and everything else, I think there is some truth to the fact that it's been being shoved in somehow. I think for a project of this magnitude, the way in which the town should publicize these hearings and these meetings for approving such a thing should be a little different than the regular meetings for a development here and there. And I think it's not being done like that. And that is the reason why the people react like Deborah saying, this is the first time I hear. Because maybe not on purpose, but it's kind of pushed under the table. Maybe not on purpose, I don't want to put that, but this should have a different type of procedure from the point of view of the town, how you open up developments like that so the public knows. Now, they will participate, I don't know, but at least it's being done right. And I don't think it's being done right.
So, all right, so let's circle back to what we're here for now, or why this is in front of us. So a request for comment. It's not the final. And Stephanie, I guess, I mean, especially if they're gonna break, I'm assuming this is gonna come back to us again. Since it sounds like this may change pretty substantially, where these aren't the final plans and now it may go to 3 buildings.
But, I mean, they're not increasing the number of units, but yes.
No, right, but it's a different project, obviously, you know, from a planning board standpoint, in terms of circulation and parking and all those things, so.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess, I mean, so I guess what I was trying to say before is, you know, if someone wants to, you know, take a hard stand and oppose this project, then I think that's better done with a group of citizens than it is with the planning board. Because we really don't have much say on this. That's just 40B. That's not because of the leaders of this town, or that's how 40Bs work in comprehensive permits. And I gave a little history of my, you know, my feedback early on, just so you people and frankly people watching at home knew, you know, that you know, I did try to get a word in there for some of the things that we talked about, but you know, we're just appointed. We're not elected, so that limits our power, and unfortunately, sometimes limits our involvement. You know, and Amas, to your point, you know, I agree. I think you know, I'd like to see on lots of types of projects, but you know, I'd like to see more outreach. But in fairness to the people that maybe you're criticizing, you know, as someone who has participated along with Stephanie and a bunch of other planning directors, we've tried all sorts of public outreach on everything from master plan to projects, and you know what, you get the same, you get the same very small group of people. And what do I always say? When do people get involved in planning? When it's in their backyard, because you know, it doesn't interest them. We're all busy. We have lots of things to do, and there's so many different ways to communicate these days. The old days of when you only got your news from a newspaper obviously are a little bit behind us, and it is harder to reach people.
You know, reading the traffic study, I just didn't see that it indicated why the entrance was located where it is. I thought, you know, from my experience in that area, which I actually have a bit, I thought the sight lines would be better up there towards the corner on near the Brockton line, but that's just my anecdotal.
I read that
area many times. Yeah.
I read that a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, but they're cutting the grade down. Remember, there was a couple paragraphs in there how they're cutting the grade down for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if it's because of the home across the street that might, you know, maybe maintain its value more without an entrance across the street.
No, I mean, that house across the street is actually on the market. That the person who owned this property owns that house, and they're moving out.
I don't know what the reason for that is, but
and I think it's the situation of the buildings and how it flows out, and the we have.
Is it detention area? Is that what that is? Where that home?
And we've contracted, the zoning board of appeals is contracted with a peer reviewer to review the traffic.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if people like it's you know, sometimes it's just good enough by the peer review or whatever. But yeah, just my comment. I've been there a lot, so that's my comment.
And I also, this made me think of something. It's important to point out. I'd say this to all the members of this board and to folks at home. You know, this is going to be, you know, check the website. This will be going before the zoning board of appeals, and that's where you can have your voice heard. And if you want to change things on this project, you know, or you know, are concerned with things on this project, that's where to be heard. And just because we're on a board doesn't mean you still have the right as a citizen to go and represent the board, but represent yourself. So do we want to do anything with this, folks? Do you want to just leave it?
Like,
what do we do with this, especially when you say that this is going to be redesigned for three buildings instead of 2?
I said it may be. That was we don't know that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. See, I look at this, and you know, I would like to see complete drawings to really give our, you know, when we do site plan review, we don't do it on preliminary plans, right? We do it on this. So unless there's something glaring that we feel we need to bring up now, maybe we just comment that we would you know, we will withhold our comments until we receive the final plans of the final project in its final state.
And that makes sense.
Yeah, and if we saw something glaring that, you know, really caught our eye, that maybe would be a good suggestion before they, keep the process flowing, but it doesn't sound like there are any glaring, great ideas here, so.
So Greg, at this point, my suggestion would be that we not put this on the next meeting's agenda unless we receive something in
Yeah,
time.
until we get until we get the correct plans or updated plans. I agree. So we don't send anything to the ZBA now, right? We just wait?
Right, yep.
Okay.
I just wanted to, it's not relevant to this project or to obviously the current process. But why isn't the planning board asked for comment prior to the project being approved by the select people? And
Well, because think of it, how it works out, the project, the permit approval authority on this is the ZBA, it's not the planning board.
so is the ZBA asked for comment during the process
Yes,
before the board does
we're
comment?
responding to tonight is a request for comment from the ZBA. That's who issues the comprehensive permit.
Right, but was the ZBA involved in the process with the select board when the select board voted on it?
I don't.
You said that the select board has approved the 110 units. I guess was the ZBA?
So if we could just be really clear, the select board didn't vote to approve it. As Greg's pointed out, the zoning board of appeals is the only board that has that authority and power under a comprehensive permit. What the select board did upon being approached by the applicant to provide a letter of support for the project, they reviewed it and they voted to support the project as a local initiative project.
So they were involved in at least knowing about the project and getting some feedback to the select board in part of their moving the project forward.
Appeals?
No, not necessarily.
No.
I mean,
And then I guess I wonder, like, what is the select board, like, if you have all these boards available to you to potentially offer input, but then you don't actually ask for input until after they really, like, you're basically, like, it doesn't sound like we have very much authority in terms of like what our comments can be at this stage.
Again, the role of the select board in this is that their vote isn't a vote of approval. And it states in the mitigation, the memorandum of understanding, that everything is contingent on the project being approved by the zoning board of appeals. So what they're doing is kind of giving the developer their blessing to move forward and apply for their letter of project eligibility, which again, a developer could do with or without the support of the select board, but it does put the town in a better negotiating position with the developer.
So then if that's the case, then why wouldn't, if whatever we decided, if we thought it shouldn't be 2 buildings or we thought it should be less than 110 units, why wouldn't that be considered?
Well, I think if I could jump in, so let's think of the process of this. The developer came to the town administrator back in January of 2020. So the town administrator got myself as the chair of the planning board, Dottie Fuginetti, chair of the ZBA, the interim planning director at the time, and himself. I guess I was at to meet with Rick Lincoln and his team, and it showed us what they were thinking about. And we threw some comments around that. And at that meeting, Nobody said they were for it or against it. It was like, we don't have to think about this. And, both pros and cons were brought up. And then that was the last that I heard of it until Stephanie had come back and actually called me one time to ask me what I knew about the project. Because she was going to be going into a meeting for it. And then over the course of the next month or two, the administration and the planning department wrote a report and a summary about the project and pointed out why they felt it was a positive project. And they submitted that to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen then, I don't recall, and like I said, I was at that meeting when that was presented, and there was not one citizen there. And this was all posted publicly, and people know that's how things work in towns with town meeting forms of government. You have to follow the postings if you want to keep an eye on what's happening in town. Because it's not fair to say, "Oh, I wish you told me about that," because I'm interested. Because if there are ways to find the information, but you have to check them weekly. So, and I'm not saying that to you, Deb, or anybody else. I'm just saying that in general, because people always say they don't hear, but they're not going to call you. The things are put out. They are put out on Facebook. They're put out on the town's website. They're put out on the town crier. But you have to receive those things. You have to read those things to know of it, or run into a public meeting at the post office or some other place. That dated form of posting. And anyways, so then. And I don't know if it was at that one, Stephanie would know better, but subsequently the Board of Selectmen voted to support this, right? Is that accurate to say, Stephanie?
Yes.
Yeah, they voted to support that. And then at which point, Rick Lincoln's team went to work on, the more refined design, site design, et cetera, and working. And I know there were discussions with Brockton, trying to see if they could tie into sewer, things like that. And then when they're ready, then they come forward to the ZBA. So, our point, being blunt, as a planning board, for the project to be at this point now, I feel, I don't have much of a say in it. Because even if we were united as a board, if all five of us, we are so against this for reason X, Y, Z, and we could storm the town hall, we're appointed by the board that already agreed to send this on. Now, that doesn't mean they wouldn't listen to us, but they would probably, they'd probably say, well, you guys are involved in planning, or we appointed you to be one of our planning reps, but should, to Amas's point, I don't think it's, I agree with a lot of Amas's point. I'll just say it that way, Amas's point. So, but anyways, but to anybody at home and to anybody on this board, if you have specific issues with this plan, whether it's density or whatever it is, I think you're better off. Even if we wrote a strong argument as a board and sent something in, I think you need to go face to face or virtual face to virtual face. And present this. A letter's not really going to do that much. You need to get out there with the passion and with some residents behind you and build consensus, just like you want to do in anything. But that hasn't been done. I'm not saying that should have been done. I'm just saying that hasn't been done. And so the selectmen, move forward with it because no one really told them, a bunch of people go online and scream about it, but they don't scream at the selectmen about it. So they need to focus their discussions better, I guess, if they want to have a say or a better say. Anyways, let's. I think we're done. Anybody else? We're good with this?
All set.
All right. So we're just going to table this for now until we get the next set of plans. Correct?
Yes.
All right. So next up, I just lost my agenda again. I know we have another request for comment. Go back up to here. And it is, Turnpike Street, special permit.
These,
Leandro's, outdoor seating at Leandro's.
yeah, the next two are outside dining. which they will also need to come to site plan review. So this is going to the Board of Appeals because outside dining requires a special permit for that use from the Board of Appeals under, zoning Board of Appeals under the use regulations. They have been operating with outside dining, under the emergency order, both Leandro and Porticello's, which, is the next one. I'm sorry, Union Villa, are seeking to be able to offer outside dining on a permanent basis going forward. The only comment I'd like to offer the board, I did go out and visit both sites. I mean, I'm familiar with Union Villa because it's so close to the town offices and we have a pretty secure layout. My concerns with the Leandros, again, which would be addressed if they receive their special permit for the use from the Board of Appeals and when they come for site plan review, is that they are showing the traffic two-way in and out. But prior to that, you could wrap around, you could exit the building on the eastern side. What they've done is convert that exit, that driveway, into the parking area. They just have a couple of, at each end of the plastic water-filled barriers that are protecting people from vehicular traffic. Which of course now is excluded. They've been operating this way, I believe, over the course of last summer, so almost for a year. And certainly we haven't heard of any incidents, but I do think they need more protection. But again, that would be something that if the use were allowed by the special permit, that the planning board would weigh in on when it came for site plan review.
Does the I didn't even look, the 20-foot driveway they're talking about, is that in our rules and regs for commercial? Or is that, I always thought it was 24.
I
Traffic at parking.
didn't look at that.
Because that's a concern of mine. I don't know what they have for, those are old parking spaces there. I used to park there quite a bit when it was the Stone, when it was, what was the Irish place? Anyways, I move on.
I think, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I didn't look at this in a lot of detail versus regulations, again, knowing it would have to come for site plan review. Certainly that could be a comment that the board provides back, is that they would need to comply with the regulations as far as parking and travel with lane width.
Yeah, and my concern would be that just that they, that sidewalk, it doesn't become so narrow to not be accessible.
Yeah.
And, but yet at the same time, they're gonna have to meet the
It is.
requirements.
I took a couple of pictures late on Friday, and I didn't have a chance to upload them today. But it is tight.
Yeah, it's tight already, right? Exactly. So,
What about the curb cut in front of the old entrance?
In front of
The southern entrance that's being blocked off by the tables?
Yeah, I mean, you can,
That's the way it would be, yeah.
they currently, it looks like they're proposing, because I didn't really see a barrier. So yeah, it needs to be blocked off very clearly. If that's your concern, Peter, that vehicles could.
well, it's
I was just thinking, I mean, it's not a great time to ask restaurants to do like new islands and landscaping, but it's just, if anything can be done at this time, if you just think about it quickly and see if there's anything that could maybe look better than some Jersey barriers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're talking about at the road, right, Peter?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I mean, to close that 20 feet down, I don't think it's a financial hardship to, whether it's landscaping or something. To your point, we always talk about economic development and beautifying, and just putting, I understand they can't close it because it's a state road, but to just put 4 Jersey barriers across there. So we might want to give them a heads up that we support it, but if we do support it, we'd be looking, we're concerned with the parking layout and in terms of clearances and how they're going to handle the barriers at Washington Street. We'd want to see that something besides just barriers there.
And just the Board of Appeals will consider any comments by the fire department, so we just leave that alone, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fire department, when it comes to us, if and when it comes to us for site plan,
Yeah,
the fire department will check in. So someone want to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to recommend both of these projects.
second,
But we have to separate them because they're separate owners.
Okay. So we'll take Leandro's first motion, this Stetson motion to recommend the Leandro's use for outdoor seating.
DeShane, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Strange eye.
Stetson, aye.
Anderson, I.
Alstaric, aye.
Kevin, White.
Great, unanimous. Okay, Bob, now 190 Washington Street.
And motion to approve the outdoor seating use at 190 Washington Street. Stetson.
DeShane, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Strange eye.
DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Anderson, I.
Alstaric, aye.
Kevin, White.
All right, I think that's a wrap, right? Why didn't my
It
agenda
is.
keep closing?
Meeting minutes.
Oh, we have minutes. I missed that.
Was beautiful minutes.
Well, why don't you make a motion if they're so beautiful?
I can't. I am.
Uh,
You can make motion.
Full power.
Motion to
Motion.
approve for June 28th.
Second, Stetson.
No further discussion, no hands raised, all those in favor, Strange eye.
DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Alstaric, aye.
When do we get to meet in person?
Well, there will be a planning board soiree at my residence later this year, but,
All right, yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully at some point we can.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's being thought about right now. I haven't heard a lot, but I have to say, I have really enjoyed being able to do meetings from home and not have to drive home at night. But at the last meeting, I was on board with Greg. When I had papers and I couldn't, spread them all out, I was like, yeah, we need to get back.
well, it's going crazy.
Well, and I think I've really started to see, I think a lot of the boards are suffering when you don't get, everything we do is on TV, and sometimes there's just nuanced yet legal conversations that you just have between each other. And when you can't have those, I think the process hurts and the citizens aren't served well. So hopefully sooner than later. All right, who wants to bring us home?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All those in favor, Strange eye.
DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Anderson, I.
Kevin, White.
Alstaric, aye.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Do your sun dance, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, goodbye.
Good night.
Night. Thank you all.